41 churches closing every single day. That is the pace of change now unfolding across the United States, and it represents one of the most dramatic institutional shifts in the modern history of American Christianity. Analysts estimate that 15,000 churches could close in 2026 alone, a number so large that it reshapes the landscape of faith communities across the country. Buildings that once held weekly worship services, weddings, baptisms, and funerals are quietly going dark. Congregations that survived wars, economic depressions, and massive cultural shifts throughout the 20th century are now struggling to survive the pressures of the 21st. Before we go deeper into the story and what it means for the future of Christianity in America, take a moment to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss future reports exploring major developments like this. The numbers themselves tell a striking story. At the start of the century, church closures were happening, but at a much slower pace. Around the year 2000, researchers estimated roughly 3,500 churches were closing annually. By 2010, that number had nearly doubled to about 6,000 closures each year. A decade later, around 2020, the figure climbed again to roughly 10,000 closures annually. Now the estimate for 2026 has reached 15,000, and some projections suggest that by the end of the decade, as many as 20,000 churches could close every year. Those figures reveal not just decline but acceleration. What once appeared to be a slow, gradual change has become a rapidly intensifying trend. To understand why this is happening, researchers point first to the shrinking membership of many historic denominations. Several long-established Protestant groups that once dominated American religious life have seen steady losses in attendance and membership. The United Methodist Church has experienced major internal divisions and membership decline in recent years, resulting in thousands of congregations leaving or reorganizing. Meanwhile, the Presbyterian Church, USA, has seen membership steadily decrease for decades, with many congregations now much smaller than they were in previous generations. The Episcopal Church, once one of the most influential denominations in American society, has also faced declining attendance and aging congregations. Even the Catholic Church, which remains the largest Christian body in the United States, has reported falling weekly mass attendance in many regions. Demographics play a major role in this shift. In thousands of churches across the country, the average age of members has climbed above 60 years old. Many congregations consist primarily of older adults who have faithfully attended the same church for decades. While their commitment has sustained those churches for many years, it also means that large numbers of members will pass away in the coming decades. In many cases, younger generations are not replacing them at the same rate. The result is what researchers sometimes call a demographic cliff. Congregations gradually shrink until they reach a point where maintaining staff, programs, and buildings becomes impossible. The generational divide is especially visible among younger Americans. Surveys consistently show that Generation Z is the least religious generation recorded in U.S. history. Large percentages of young adults say they rarely or never attend religious services. Many still describe themselves as spiritual or open to faith, but they're less likely to affiliate with organized religion or participate in traditional church life. This shift does not necessarily mean that younger people reject faith entirely, but it does reveal a widening gap between historic church structures and the way many young people now approach spirituality. Cultural changes also contribute to the challenge. For decades, churches operated within a predictable weekly rhythm that matched the broader culture. Sunday mornings were widely understood as a time for worship. Work schedules, school activities, and sports leagues often avoided those hours. Today, that cultural alignment has largely disappeared. Many families now work weekends, travel frequently, or participate in activities that compete with traditional church schedules. At the same time, the rise of digital media and streaming entertainment has changed how people spend their free time. Churches that continue using ministry models developed 50 or 60 years ago sometimes struggle to connect with communities whose lifestyles have changed dramatically. Another factor frequently mentioned in discussions about church decline is the impact of high-profile scandals involving prominent Christian leaders. Over the past 2 decades, a series of widely publicized cases has shaken trust in religious institutions. Figures such as Karl Lentz, Ravi Zacharias, Bill Hybels, and Robert Morris have all been connected to controversies that drew national attention. Each situation had its own details and circumstances, but collectively they reinforced concerns about accountability and transparency within church leadership. For some observers, these scandals contributed to a broader erosion of trust, particularly among younger generations already skeptical of institutions. Financial pressures also weigh heavily on struggling congregations. Church budgets typically rely on donations from members, which decline when attendance falls. At the same time, many churches occupy large buildings constructed decades ago when congregations were significantly larger. These buildings require constant maintenance, heating, insurance, and repairs. When membership shrinks, the cost of maintaining those facilities can quickly become overwhelming. Some churches attempt to merge with neighboring congregations or rent space to community organizations. Others ultimately decide to sell their property and close. The rise of megachurches in recent decades has also revealed certain structural weaknesses. Large congregations built around charismatic leaders can grow rapidly, drawing thousands of attendees and expanding into multiple campuses. However, these ministries sometimes rely heavily on the visibility and influence of a single pastor. When that leader retires, moves on, or becomes involved in controversy, the entire organization can struggle to maintain momentum. In some cases, attendance drops sharply, revealing how fragile personality-driven models can be. Despite these challenges, the story of American Christianity is not entirely one of decline. Many churches continue to grow and thrive, particularly those that adapt to changing cultural realities. Pentecostal and charismatic congregations, for example, often emphasize vibrant worship experiences, strong community life, and active spiritual engagement. Immigrant congregations also represent a major area of growth, bringing new cultural expressions of faith into the American religious landscape. Churches that prioritize discipleship, community service, and strong biblical teaching frequently report stable or growing participation, even as other congregations shrink. These examples suggest that the future of Christianity in America may look very different from the past, but not necessarily smaller in influence. Instead of large institutional structures dominating entire regions, the landscape may shift toward more diverse expressions of church life. Smaller congregations, house churches, immigrant communities, and mission-focused ministries could become increasingly prominent. The institutions that survive will likely be those willing to rethink methods while remaining committed to their core message. For many believers, the current moment feels like a crossroads. The closing of thousands of churches raises difficult questions about how faith communities should respond to cultural change, generational shifts, and internal challenges. Some leaders argue that the crisis is primarily structural, meaning churches must adapt their strategies, schedules, and communication methods to reach modern society. Others believe the deeper issue is spiritual, calling for renewed emphasis on discipleship, authenticity, and community life rather than institutional expansion. What remains clear is that American Christianity is entering a period of transformation. The buildings may change, the structures may evolve, and the cultural influence of churches may look different in the coming decades. Yet many believers see these challenges not only as a warning but also as an opportunity to rediscover the core mission of the church, serving communities, nurturing faith, and sharing hope in a rapidly changing world. As thousands of congregations close their doors, the larger story continues to unfold. Some churches will disappear, others will reinvent themselves, and new forms of ministry will emerge in unexpected places. Whether this moment becomes a period of lasting decline or the beginning of renewal will depend largely on how faith communities respond to the pressures they now face. If you want more reports and deeper analysis on stories shaping the global church, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next update.